So the jump from single venue ownership to multi-venue was like a heart attack for me. Everything was going really well, and we went from one site to three, and it was exciting, but things start to slip. We got our year-end report, and I had two venues within walking distance of each other, and they all looked the same on the surface. Two boxes, similar revenue, similar type of business. But when I looked at venue A, it was outperforming venue B by multiples. In fact, about 2.5 times the revenue, 2.5 times the profit. Our customer engagement was about 30% higher, and we had about half the staff turnover. So, of course, this got our attention. We wanted to find out what was happening. After a thorough look through both businesses, of course, there were a lot of little things that all add up to make a difference. But the biggest difference we had was at our mid-management level. We had two great GMs in place and really great staff, people we were proud of at both venues. But when we looked at the leadership team, at the leaders on duty, and I really prefer that term over supervisors, the leaders on duty that we had in place, we had this amazing A-team that really elevated the rest of the team around them. So it helped me really understand how important these people are. I would argue, that everyone in your business is important, but two things up front. Number one, I'd argue that your leaders on duty are possibly the most important position in your business. And secondly, having worked with hundreds of venues myself, and my company's worked with thousands of venues, I know they're often the most underinvested position in business. So let's talk about how to change that. I've got about 8 steps that I want you to consider. They might all work for you, and you might just pick a few that really make a difference in your business. So let's jump in. First off, semantics matter, right? If you call someone a supervisor, you're asking them to babysit your business and make sure that things don't break, and when they do, fix them and keep things running. When you ask someone to be a leader on duty on that shift, you're asking them to make that shift as good as it could be. And most leaders are out front. They're leading by example. They're bringing the energy to work. They are the embodiment, hopefully, of you, right? If you're the founder of the business or one of the partners, you want someone there that's really going to bring that energy into your business. So just think about what you call people to get started. So step one in this process, it's important that you develop a criteria set for your business. I had 8 bars and restaurants at one point. And whilst there were commonalities across all 8 in what we were looking for in our leaders, there were nuances in each business. So, some of the commonalities for us is we wanted someone who brought a ton of energy to each shift. And to be able to bring energy, not just for yourself, for the entire team, and have that energy last 8, 10, 12 hours, by the time you get everyone out of the building and so forth, it's no small measure. Secondly, for us, they really had to have a passion for service. Right? They had to get excited and motivated and gratified off delivering hospitality and making people smile and taking care of people, which takes us to their mindset and a real service mindset. In this case, a servant leader, right? Somebody who's going to serve the team below them so that they can serve your guests. And finally, it's really important you have someone, instead of getting frustrated on the fly, that they're able to teach on the fly and lead by example through that. So that is already a very tall order for your business. And then there are the nuances, right? We had grunge bars, so it had to be someone who loved that crowd and wanted to be a part of that and knew the difference between, the Ramones and a current popular rock band that was playing. Whatever those nuances are, you need to figure those out and make sure you know who you're looking for out of the gate. Number 2, experience versus non-experience. This was the most interesting thing for me, is that when we got up on stride and we looked at our leadership team at that mid-level, the leaders on duty, 80% of our leaders on duty did not have industry experience. And what we found was that if they don't, it's really important that you have a solid industry experience above them and beneath them, right? It's very tough to have someone who's not worked in the industry coaching someone who's never worked in the industry. So we found that, these important people, that we could bring them in, they had great leadership experience elsewhere. They could learn the job and learn the restaurant business and the bar business in, 3 to 6 months. But they were there to develop people and get the most out of the shift. So you figure out if you need someone with experience or not. Something to watch out for, and a mistake that I made several times in the past, is the Peter principle in business. And the Peter principle is promoting someone to their level of incompetence. right? So a good example of that, I had this woman that worked for me. She was amazing. In fact, likely the best bartender in our whole group. She'd been with us for a while. I pushed her, encouraged her to become a leader in our company. Well, what I did was took one of our best players in the whole company and totally demotivated her and disengaged her. She didn't want to lead other people and fix everyone else's problems in the shift. She loved working her station, being in the bar, taking care of her guests, and so forth. Just because someone's a great bartender does not mean that they're going to be a great bar leader. Sometimes I know that is the case, and you get people that do that, make that transition. You don't have to push your best bartenders out of their position. So watch out for that. Looking at some of the criteria, and again, every business, and maybe even every country is a little bit different, but here are some common denominators. When we started surveying our best leaders, here are some common denominators across those folks. Number one, they played sports or they were in a club, right? They, on their own time, they were actively engaged with others, whether that's playing chess or playing on a football club or whatever it might be. Some of our best leaders were captains or assistant captains, right? Not a criteria for us. I'm just telling you what some of the common denominators were. Many of them were volunteers, right? Even at a young age, they did something, whether that was picking up rubbish on days that was a program in their community. They were involved in local drive for the firefighters, whatever it might be. These people had no problem giving up their time for others. And finally, many of them were siblings from larger families or caregivers to grandparents or sick parents, right? So you start to see these common denominators and these superstars that we have. And that helped us when we were interviewing, and we started asking people some of these questions. Has this ever been a part of your life? And again, you didn't have to have these experiences to get hired, but it helped us understand who people were. Number three, I look at the restaurant business and the bar business like American football, where you have offense, defense, and special teams, right? Bars and restaurants have kind of three zones. They're closed, and there's lots of work to be done often when it's closed, whether that's before the shift or after the shift. We have off-peak, and that means that we are at work. We're there. There could be guests in the building, but the bar's not 2 or 3 deep. And then we have peak hours, which for most businesses is 12 to 20 hours per week, right? And that's where you're making 80% of your money, by the way. So this is how we look to coach our leaders on duty, is to say, right, what tone and tempo do you have when you're closed and you're kind of driving the business up, you're ramping it up, getting it ready to go. In those off-peak hours, right, we saw that as our time to really engage with guests that had come in early or stayed after peak hours to build those relationships, but also to get the side work done and so forth. And then during peak hours, that was a different gear, a different tempo, and a different philosophy, different game plan, if you like. So make sure you're working with your leaders to understand, what to do at what time during the shift. Number four, if you've not read a book that was written, I think in the 80s, the author's name is Jack Stack, and the book's called The Great Game of Business. And this book really shows you how to turn your business into a game, how to put up a big scoreboard, but also to have a lot of micro games going on, make it fun and engaging, rather than an endless treadmill. So this really helped our supervisors kind of drive the restaurant, the host stand, the bar in different segments, the kitchen, right? There's lots you can do. Read that book, and I promise you'll have a dozen new ideas tomorrow. Number five, what we worked on with our leadership team was really getting the pre-shift right. So the pre-shift for us was, an update, what we have, what we don't have from the kitchen and the bar and so forth, any special events going on. But our main driver, the pre-shift, was to make sure that we were fielding a team that was ready to play. And I'll give you one example of a quick exercise we do every pre-shift. You're standing there with 5 or 6 people, and you start with the person to your left, and you might say, hey, what's one thing in the next 90 days that you're really looking forward to? Right? That person goes. The next person goes. This only takes a minute. A couple things have happened here, right? You get to hear what your team's up to. You also look at people's body language, and maybe you have one person looking at the ground saying, I don't know, I don't have a lot going on right now, right? Once you're done your 5-minute pre-shift, everyone breaks. Our leaders go over and talk to that person and try to get them ready for the shift, right? People have bad days all the time. And we said, that's okay. You just can't have it on the floor of the restaurant or in the kitchen or in the bar, right? Much like Broadway, we said, you've never been to a Broadway show where you've seen an actor or actress dragging their tail around the stage. because if they're not into it, they're not 100% ready to go, the understudy gets their time to practice and to shine on stage. So that was our driver for pre-shift. Number 6 is we realized that during the shift, it's a contact sport. So we organized our shifts so that there were no cell phones. If you're a smoker, you better be able to hold out for however long that peak hours were, because that was the time the business made its money. And we drove our numbers, we knew what was possible, and we always wanted to push a little bit further beyond that. So I'll tell you, the number one thing that drives numbers and engagement and energy is your leaders getting involved, getting dirty, getting their sleeves rolled up. I was an owner, I'd get my sleeves rolled up. This is why some of our stores did $5 million and the place next door did $2.5 million, right? One of the key reasons. Final point on this during the shift, and it was a course correction I had to make. I was really good at spotting every issue going on and walking over and pointing it out to somebody, right? And a coach of mine once said to me, you shouldn't be spending 80% of your shift pointing out what's wrong and only 20% complimenting somebody. You should flip that around, right? And if you're constantly spotting what you like and saying, hey, that's amazing, great work, look at Peter, that's exactly what we want to see, they're going to start to course correct themselves. And of course, you have to help them with a few things, but instead of 80-20, flip that to 20-80. 7th thing we did with our leaders is that we always finish strong. So most businesses have a pre-shift, very few have a post-shift. You can huddle up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. When you huddle up, a couple things we wanted to accomplish at the post-shift. From the leadership, we wanted to thank everyone for giving it their all during the shift. Second thing we wanted to do was to find out what we could improve or what could be improved in the business. Always pad and paper, and we're jotting things down. We wanted to improve 1% every day. Just one little adjustment, and we knew we'd get gradually better and become the best we could be. And then the third thing that we wanted to ask of them was, if anyone in the group saw something wonderful today, did you see someone overachieve? Did you see something good happen that doesn't normally happen? And we try to capture those ideas and one-off so that we can thank someone more formally or look to implement that idea. Sarah, this happened and she did that, and man, if we had that available at all times, we'd be a better business. So we tried to capture that and look to improve that 1%. Finally, number 8, once we saw how well this team did at Venue A, we put best practice in at Venue B and C, and over time when we opened all 8 properties, they were across. Up until then, we had not incentivized properly the middle management team. So at that point we did. We rewarded them. Cash is a nice thing, right? And we like to reward on cash for over and above. You joined the business and it was doing this during peak hours. We make more money when you add more money on, and we're going to give you guys a slice of that. Cash is good. People like cash. They also like trips. So we're really good at shopping for really good bargains, and we buy trips for the member of the team at +1. We would invest in their education. So we had a small fund that we kept building onto. And if you came to us and wanted to study, and we thought it wouldn't affect you leaving the business, if you're just going to study within the business, and you could teach us something back, we invested in that. And fitness. We had deals with the membership clubs around us. They wanted drinks. We wanted our people not to drink and to go and get fit. So it was a good trade. And then finally, and one of the more powerful things was recognition. So I encouraged our senior leadership team to do a lot of speaking at colleges and trade shows and so forth. Take this is before, this is what we did, and this is what happened, and bring the people, the leaders on duty, not only point to them as the example and get them involved, but teach them to speak and go out and deliver themselves. So those are 8 things that we did over the course of time, and each one made us a better business, and I hope it works just as well for you.